Hi there. In another excellent posting, the Pathless Path posed an intriguing request for people to describe their spiritual experiences. But at first I was reminded of Lao Tzu's words that those who know do not speak, and those that speak do not know. And I wondered if that's not only a declaration of spiritual humility, but of the limits of language when words are used literally. For example, check out neuroscientist Jill Boulter-Taylor's book, My Stroke of Insight, for evidence on spiritual experience and the non-linguistic right brain. These experiences, being mainly right-brained from the non-verbal half of the brain, can't really be adequately represented in words. Language helps when employed poetically or as gropings pointing towards the experience, but never capturing it. So, reminding myself of this, I step where angels fear to tread. Like the term enlightenment, the term spiritual experience has collected so much baggage about it that it needs a good clean-up, a deconstruction, in order to honour the wide range of experiences that we call spiritual. After all, spiritual experience is our birthright, and all of us have them in some measure, even if the term has been hijacked by various players and some of the more ego-drenched depths of the spiritual marketplace. I prefer to ground my thoughts about spirituality firmly in secular evolutionary terms wherever I can. But what I'm talking about now is the whole continuum of experiences, which range from those little satori to the full-on cosmic consciousness. In the little satori experiences, the aha moments, we are momentarily transported by sensing the mystery or the wonder, seeing something as if for the first time. It might be a sunset or the sharpness of a freezing wind, the arrival of someone or something loved, a surge of compassion for a stranger's struggle. It's when my attention is pulled out of myself. That's the literal meaning of the Greek ecstasy. My ego sort of slips off the radar, and I find myself able to experience things without illusion. And in that moment, I experience a freedom not polluted by my own agenda and hang-ups. Sometimes it's more conceptual, especially when I'm grasping the feeling beyond the words of some difficult abstract idea. Gratitude is often the trigger. Sometimes it's acceptance. These experiences are commonplace. They're the bread of spiritual life. As my life has unrolled, these have become more frequent. I think this is to be expected. It's a natural phenomenon in the arc of life. As we age, past the tyranny of our instinctual survival blueprint, nature releases that stranglehold she has on us a little. We have done what she required of us. We've developed a strong enough ego to claim a place in the sun, status, security, a career or income, enough to bring up our offspring to the point of independence. And now in the second half of life's arc, the weak voice of our rational consciousness is heard, but more clearly, and we attain a greater authenticity. We know ourselves. With wise spiritual support and training, so much the better. Of course, there are so many exceptions to this rough blueprint, which Jung himself wrote a lot about. And of course, as we know, many people become so attached to those goals defined in their youth that they find no relief from the battle. But it was the main function of the life of elders in past traditions. The other end of the continuum is a full-on cosmic bliss, so overwhelming that some experience it and interpret it as divine favour, or even more, their ego attaining divinity. But this major quantum leap of consciousness is also common. Over 70% of people apparently report having had at least one episode at some time during their lifetimes, and some more often, and that's not including the substance-assisted ecstasies. Sometimes its cosmic intensity is experienced with such extraordinary sensory phenomena, things like voices and visions, It can seem that that enlightenment is just around the corner. People caught up in a guru archetype may think that they are chosen to lead and teach others, or maybe to follow some divine teacher. The archetype has an awesome power. On the one hand, it can induce a really dangerous response, ego-inflating rather than ego-transcending. But on the other, it can be a blessing, fueling the inner determination that is needed to sustain us on that long, winding, hard road of spiritual growth. But these potentially transforming experiences should trigger no sense of pride or spiritual accomplishment. After all, they can be triggered with as little as a tab of LSD. Most of this I have experienced in my 50-odd years exploring the field of paths. The little satori's have always flitted across my radar, and in my late teens I had a big cosmic tidal wave that for a few months swept me away into an egoic ecstasy, heaven on earth, nirvana, expectations of imminent Buddhahood, all that. Okay, it wasn't enlightenment, but it certainly filled my fuel tanks for that long journey that still continues, and I soon learned to see this experience in less grandiose lights, as valuable glimpses of things as they really are, and a permanent change had occurred. The default background to all my thinking was literally flipped from somewhat cool, detached, cynical, pessimistic, judgmental, typical 19-year-old, into its total reverse. Not that I was virtuous, but I now believed in virtue as a possibility. As the experience wore off, of course, I knew I'd have to set out on the journey of spiritual practice with much more patience and compassion than hitherto. I had much to learn. For the next 30 years I learned how to be cracked open, be transformed by life, to value the million little deaths, searching out the little satori that I mentioned earlier, viewing a sunset or being in love, holding my firstborn and my secondborn and my thirdborn. A good meditation, enjoying music, dancing, being fully engaged in some activity or thought, learning to see with a new eye as life put things before me. And as life smashed my cherished opinions, learning how to hold them very gently in open hands. And then the greatest privilege of all, to be put in the hands of teacher death. Of course, we're all in this teacher's hands, but we tend to forget it. But to be diagnosed with a cancer without a cure, at least I know it, and I've had a good dialogue with this teacher. This teaching is a spiritual experience, and it shows me how to release my white-knuckled grip on life itself, and allow it to sit like a bird in the palm of my hand. This releases energy to let me explore life with evolution's greatest gift to our species, our rational consciousness. And for this I'm often overcome with a deep gratitude and love. And then life fizzes with little joys and satori's, and I count myself the most fortunate of men.